Shalom. Call hello, Yahweh Shemi Hashai, Bahashim Makal Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS, including the elders that came before them that taught us the truth. Shalom and salutations to all brothers out pushing the word, the truth, and the sincerity, hopeful elect tabernacle of David, the Aqua that are listening and learning, being a pillar of rest, the 144,000, the one-third, the hopeful elect, all right? I'm a brother Yahshua, I'm back with the WW3 Daily Update. Shalom and salutations to you as well. We're going to start right here at 2nd Ezra 16 and 17. Woe is me, woe is me. Who will deliver me in those days? The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Okay, so that's kind of the spirit that this guy, the voice of reason right here, I'm going to let him speak. He's going to, try to tell the story about Ukraine, but he's going to get swept up in the problems that the war is bringing here, all right, and how it's affecting the economy. I'm going to just let him speak for a while, get a perspective and a little update on the war. I often go and use this guy, right? Look at this. I use him to bring out the war update, and he's pretty efficient at keeping an eye on what's actually going on the ground, on the front lines. So if he's not talking about that specifically, he's talking about something that this World War III is asymmetric. It's not a conventional war at all. So anyway, take it away, BOR.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. So first, before I start coverage of the ongoing conflict, I had the opportunity to engage in a conversation recently with what I would define as a low-information, diehard supporter of continued U.S. support for the Ukrainian state. And this person asked me, well, why don't you support Ukraine's right to defend itself? And I absolutely support Ukraine's right to defend itself. They absolutely can, just not with my money. And he was kind of taken aback by that. And he goes, well, what do you mean, your money? It's everyone's money. I mean, everyone has to. We did this during World War II. Well, no, not so fast. World War II was World War II. This is something that is much, much different and has a much more nuanced history that you probably aren't aware of. And then I asked that question, well, what do you know about the history of Ukraine? What do you know about the history of its relationship between Russia, the eastern regions of Ukraine? And he really couldn't tell me anything because he didn't know that history. And then I brought up the issue of money. I told this individual that over the summer I had the opportunity to drive hundreds of miles through what you would call the Midwestern United States. And I had the opportunity to go through many small towns. And many of these towns that once had thriving small businesses, thriving small restaurants designed to facilitate interstate commerce, traffic, those are all gone. All those businesses have been destroyed by the lockdowns. The U.S. government, the Biden administration, in locking down the United States, destroyed hundreds and hundreds of small businesses, annihilated them, and they're all gone. And many of these towns are now dying. and it's not talked about. It's not discussed in the mainstream media. Could that have been prevented? Could an infusion of cash have prevented the destruction of those small towns, all those livelihoods? Traditional America, gone. Maui, an entire city is destroyed in a wildfire that in all probability was caused by left-wing environmentalism politics. What did the United States do for Maui? They gave $750 to each resident of that city. Lahaina. Ukraine. The United States has poured in over $100 billion. $100 billion. And again, I circle back to the poor decision-making processes of locking down. And that came into the issue too, in terms of, well, didn't we need to lock down? Didn't we need to lock down? Other countries didn't lock down. Look at some of the Nordic countries and how they fared. How many vaccinations and how many boosters did you get? Did you receive? And how many times have you gotten COVID? Once, twice, 3 times? Right. So anyway, again, as I compare and contrast the outflow of treasure to this very corrupt nation state that really serves no viable purpose for the United States. And the only thing I can really envision is that the current president is under blackmail from the Ukrainian security services because of his crackhead son taking millions and millions of dollars from Ukrainian businesses. And the punk card was pulled. And here we sit. Over $100 billion. But American small towns destroyed. Poor decision-making processes. A city burnt out. Each resident gets a measly $700. You could have rebuilt that city, Lahaina, 2, 3, 4 times over already. And yet, Ukraine is more important than individuals here in the United States. It's ridiculous.
Okay, let's see if he says anything about the war.
So what keeps this war going? What right now is the leading reason that Ukraine has had the ability to stifle this Russian operation? Remember, at the beginning of the conflict, Ukraine was going to last 2 days. Russian tanks would be rolling into Kiev in no time flat. Again, another bad call. It was wrong. And from the very beginning, we here at IMFAN tried to say, hey, look, the Russians are not going to take over Ukraine in a matter of days. There was even talk about the Russians just then rolling right through Ukraine into Moldova, Romania. Wasn't going to happen. I did not believe that it would be a very easy operation for the Russians. And at that time, I had no idea the magnitude of which the United States was going to start supporting the Ukrainian military. if I had known that the U.S. would pour as much assistance as it has into Ukraine, I would have probably had made the prediction that it would have been very difficult for the Russians to ever take major territories inside of Ukraine. Because at first, remember, again, early in the conflict, at the beginning stages, when the United States first started moving in weapons and equipment, it was a big deal. It was rather controversial for the U.S. to provide javelins. And at that time, the notion that we would supply Patriot surface-to-air missile systems, Harpoon 2s, and most importantly, the HIMARS.
Slovakia. Bear with me on this.
Sure.
I will end it, let him talk a little more. He just got to the military part.
This system right here, the HIMARS, is probably one of the leading causes that have led to the Russians' inability to make progress in Ukraine. And this is one of the leading pieces of equipment that allow the Ukrainians to engage and destroy large numbers of Russian forces, especially counter battery fire. Do the Russians have a similar system? They have a similar capability. I would say the closest system that the Russians have to the HIMARS would be the Smerch. It is a 300 millimeter rocket system. Now, what separates these two systems is the rocketry. It's not the system. It's not the actual HIMARS, the rocket system. It is the actual rockets and the intel behind those rockets. So the precision of these 227 millimeter guided rockets is incredible. Much more precise than, say, the Russian Smerch 300 millimeter guided rocket that the Russians use.
Now pay attention to how he's going into some of the characteristics of these missiles, because we're going to pull that out of the scriptures, right?
Then you take into account the fusion of data, meaning the real-time providing of intelligence to the Ukrainian military, to these weapon systems, whether it's satellite intelligence, drone intelligence, stealth capability, what have you. The United States has an edge on the Russian Federation in terms of real-time intelligence. And then taking that real-time intelligence, and then taking that data and then immediately having the ability to launch one of these HIMARS systems, which are more precise than many other Russian systems of its like.
I'm going to stop it right there. We might come back to this because this is very important, what he just went into. The characteristics of these missiles, their precision, how using the satellite systems and directing and targeting, all right, when Joel 2 speaks of how these missiles will not miss their mark and how they will travel, and let's get that real quick, okay? So all of this, the army of locusts is talking about these missiles, okay? And then it goes into the characteristics of them, like 2 and 7 here. They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. They shall march everyone on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. Well, that's the targeting systems. That's the what do they call it? Satellite directed intelligence it's speaking of. It says, let's see, neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. This is describing what he's going through right here. All right, read a little more. They shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up upon houses. They shall enter in at the windows like a thief. This is talking about how precision they are. Okay? That's that targeting, things like drones, drone delivery that we went into yesterday, but it's talking about the technical aspects of, I mean, when von Braun started with the V2, it didn't, how much guidance did it have, right? They were happy to have a rocket that, got off the launch pad, if you will. So I'm going to back that up a little, and he's describing this right here, all right? They shall run like mighty men. This is Joel 2:7. They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. They shall march every one on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. Neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path. This is directly speaking of the technology involved in guiding these missiles, right? Different things like drone delivery, all right? Payloads, and I mean, if you've seen these things work and the technology involved in what they are now, as opposed to the early von Braun or the what's this guy? God, I can't remember his name. Jack Parsons. The Jack Parsons days when they were, just getting these things to actually launch. Anyway, let him talk a little more.
The United States has an edge on the Russian Federation in terms of real-time intelligence. And then taking that real-time intelligence, and then taking that data and then immediately having the ability to launch one of these HIMARS systems, which are more precise than many other Russian systems of its like. The Iskander, accurate weapon system, very large weapon system. But with these HIMARS, obviously the Iskander launches 2 missiles per system, per launcher. The HIMARS can launch 6 of these guided 227 millimeter rockets. Their ability to shoot and scoot is also better than, say, a Russian Iskander. But again, the Iskander is a strategic weapon. The HIMARS is a battlefield weapon, a tactical weapon. But it can hit, it does have strategic capability. It's dual use. And again, I would argue without these HIMARS, and dozens have been sent, hundreds of these guided rockets, thousands of these guided rockets have been sent to the Ukrainians via the United States and other European allies have sent these systems to the Ukrainians. I would argue that without this one weapon system, these HIMARS, the situation on the ground would look a lot different. These HIMARS have caused significant amounts of damage to the Russian military. Furthermore, the United States has provided the ground-launched small diameter bomb, which extends the range of these rocket systems. And again, incredibly accurate. I would argue much more accurate than anything the Russians currently possess. You're looking at a CEP of about 1 meter on these systems. And obviously you can go and you can look online and you can watch videos of these HIMARS strikes, incredibly precise weapon systems.
Okay, we'll go ahead and stop it right there. So, hey, there's a little information for you that, unorthodox. And this guy, he does pretty good. He's got his own opinion. And sometimes he espouses it. He goes all the way outside of anything having to do with the war, and he just gives you his political opinion, which, you need to hear differences, You can see what other people are thinking. Anyway, with that, we hope that the elect are edified. Read all of Joel 2 if you want to know about these missiles and what the Most High has in store for them. That's going to be how the world is ended with a nuclear exchange. So anyway, with that, we hope the elect are edified, brothers and sisters, with that. Shalom.